Okay, good morning. So just a quick recap review. Yesterday, so first of all, just the Mishnah we know.
What page?
I'm just going outside for a second. Meaning the Mishnah on Yud Bet Amud Aleph, we know it's told us that that you're not allowed to. First of all, we know that the ikar mitzvah of sukkah, as the word sukkah implies, is the schach. Okay, so and we know the main criteria for the schach is that it has to be something that comes from the ground, and it cannot be something that's mekabel tuma, which hopefully today we're going to get into that a little also. It can't be something that is able to receive tuma. So what are the two biggest examples of something that can mekabel tuma, something can accept tuma? Something that's either a food item, like you cannot put apples on your sukkah as your schach. Apples, oranges, any food, since it can mekabel tuma, is pasul from schach. That's one thing. And one example. Another example is something that's a utensil. Let's say you made a chair or a bed out of wood. Even though wood is from the ground, you cannot put a chair or a table on as your schach, because since it's a utensil, that can be mekabel tuma. Now, Hachamim, the Mishnah tells us also not to use bundles. That means you tied up a bunch of straw together or whatever, branches. You cannot put them on top as your schach, even though from the Gemara says that from the Torah you could use it as schach. But Hachamim were afraid that what will happen before Sukkah comes. These are things that usually, very often, you store them for a while. So you're going to put them up not as schach but as storage. And one of the criteria of schach is that you have to put it as schach, which means you have to put it not necessarily for the mitzvah of the sukkah, but at least for shade. The ikar is the shade. But you didn't put it here. You might not. You were afraid you're going to put it not for shade but to store. And then when sukkah, if it's kosher schach, which it is technically, but Hacham were afraid you're going to look up. You're like, oh well, it's already here. Let's just leave it for my schach. But that's a problem because you didn't put it for the shade. So therefore, Hacham said, you're not to use bundles. So yesterday, just quickly, we talked about what things that are considered a bundle. So the Gemara says, well, tying one thing to itself, that's like a one branch, just tie it that's not called a bundle. You need at least more than one to tie together to be a bundle. How much do you need? So he says a machloket that 3 for sure is a bundle. That's what the Gemara said. But 2 is a machloket. Now I just want to add that we said it's the Yerushalmi is mashma. You need 25 to be considered a bundle. So he said, is it a machloket Yerushalmi and Bavli? So some say yes, it's a machloket. Some say no, because the examples that our Gemara is giving are things that. Let me see if I read this again. It says.
Isn't Torah supposed to say 5?
I remember 25. I didn't see inside, but it says here 25, and it says here that. The cases our Gemara is discussing is something that's a cluster, meaning each of the, let's say the 3, we're talking about 3 is a problem, so each of the 3 has like a bunch of branches in it, offshoots or whatever. So let's say each of them have 10, right? So when you tie them together, even though it's technically only 3 pieces, but it looks like more than 25. So that's why our Gemara, according to this opinion, holds that it's a problem. So therefore, according to some, and it says here that actually the halacha from the Shulchan Aruch is that only a bundle of 25 or more is a bundle, and that's going to be a problem. La halacha. Okay. And then we talked about it's the machlok Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan if 2 is a bundle or not, and we said at the end that according to which one? According to Chachamim, 2 is a bundle, but according to Rabbi Yossi only 3 is a bundle. We learned it from Ezov, the thing of Para Aduma. Okay, yeah. So then we got to 13b, and we said that two points we made before we got to our new sugya is that in order to be a bundle, also there's 2 more requirements. That it has to be something people tie in order to store, not just tie to sell. Sometimes people just tie something to sell it at a certain amount, but once you buy it, you unravel it, so that's not called a bundle. And the other thing we said was that it's only a bundle if it's tied enough that you can carry it that way and it won't fall apart. But these huts, once you untie the top of the huts, even though the bottom you still have a rope that's going through it. Potentially it's not a bundle anymore, especially once you untie that rope. Okay, now we started our sugya. Okay, so let me just going to start again quickly, if you don't mind, from I think 8 lines from the Yud Gimel Amud Bet, something like that, 9 lines. Amar Rav Abba Amar Shmuel, Yerakot shamru Chachamim Adam Yoseh Hahen Yodei Havato Pesach. So we're talking about maror. We're going from Sukkah to Pesach for a second, and we know that one of the mitzvahs is to eat maror. Now, says the Gemara that anything that you can use for maror, there's 3. So maybe the one halacha is that it can bring tumah, which we said means like this. That we said if you have if you have a roof above a dead body, so we said the way it works that the tumah goes above the body, it hits the roof, and then the roof will transfer the tumah to anything under that roof. So if it's in this room, it'll go up to the roof, and then this roof will carry this tumah into this entire room. Anything under this roof will become tameh. Okay? Now, so it's saying that any of these things you use for maror, if technically it would be above a dead body, it's an interesting situation, but we're going to see why it's talking this way. But the point is, you have like a big, leaf of a maror on top of the dead body, so whatever else is under the leaf will carry that tumah. Okay? Then it says something which seems to contradict the first thing, that it doesn't stop the tumah. What does it mean? Doesn't stop? It means anything above the leaf will also be tameh. Now that sounds to be that doesn't make sense, because usually anything that qualifies as a roof, it will also stop the tumah from going above it. So therefore, like we said, anything above this roof, l'chora, is not tameh. So so we'll have to see why is this lettuce, this maror, doing both. Okay, and then it says that if you put this lettuce or maror on your sukkah, it's not kosher schach. So the Gemara says, "My time, what's the reason?" We said, "Kivan de lechiyavshi parchiv nafle." Since when it gets dry, yavshi, it starts to crumble and fall. It's as if it's not there. In other words, when it's fresh and moist, it's actually good schach. Now, we asked yesterday, what do you mean? We just said, right, one of the criteria for schach is that it can't be something that can mikabel tumah. And we say usually anything that's a food item could be mikabel tumah. So assuming that maror is edible and that's we're eating it, so how could maror be kosher schach? So we said there's kind of, from Rashi it seems that it's not considered edible and we're just eating anyways, I guess. It's not considered food. But Tosfot argues and says no. The answer is we're talking about something that never got wet, and we know that one of the criteria for being for a food item to be able to become tameh is that it has to become wet with one of 7 liquids. So therefore here, since if it didn't become wet, technically it could be used as schach. However, says the Gemara, so midoraita, it is kosher schach, and midoraita, it does act as a roof, which means it will transfer the tumah. However, since the nature of maror is that when it gets dry, it starts to fall apart, Hachamim were afraid that in the middle of Sukkot, you're not going to realize that your maror started to fall apart, and you're going to continue sitting there, and it's going to be puzzle. So therefore, Hachamim said you're not allowed to use it for schach. So it's a gezer of Hachamim. Although I think I saw somewhere that says that some say no, it's actually it's actually a puzzle from the Torah, because since it's not going to last for 7 days, so it's okay, yeah, and this is also why it doesn't block the tumah. We said that if it's going to transfer tuma, why doesn't it should stop the tuma? We said no. So the reason why it doesn't block the tuma from going past the maror is because of this, meaning Hachamim again made a gezerah that it should not block tuma because of this reason, that since it might crumble, so that's why it also doesn't block tuma. So okay, that's why we have that contradiction. Hachamim can only be machmir, so they're not going to say it doesn't transfer, because midoraita does transfer. Again, transfer means that anything under the leaf, under the mar, it will become tameh. Blocking means, or not blocking means, that anything that's above the maror. So midoraita it will block it, but from hachamim it does not. Okay.
Why don't we say that lest it get wet? There's moisture in the air, whatever. Any food. Isn't it?
Oh, good. I was gonna. So the Gemara says that the only time that getting wet will make it is only if the owner is happy for it to get wet. He wants it to get wet. So if he doesn't want it or care for it to get wet, so it's still not makabel tuma. So that's what you Okay, so Gemara says va'amar. Okay, I guess that was really the end of that. That was a short little point.
So why should we wash when we are eating food that is wet? We didn't want it.
Oh, you're right. If you didn't want it, you're right. But we assume you did, because usually you wash it to clean it, right? So then you did want it. You did want it. Because, yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. Va'amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna. Habotzer lagat en lo yado. So now we're going to get into another interesting tuma-related concept. Like this. It says if a person is harvesting grapes, habotzer here harvesting grapes. This has nothing to do right now with Sukkot necessarily. He's harvesting it for what? To make wine. En lo yadot. What does en lo yadot? It means
intention.
Huh?
You know intention.
No, en lo yadot. No, means that there's no handles. Now, what does it mean, no handles? In other words, okay, so we just said that food items themselves potentially can become tameh. What about things that are attached to the food? So let's say here the grapes. You have stems. You have, the branches of the grapes, the little stems that are attached to the grape. Can the stems become tameh? And more than that, if they could, can the stems transfer to that means if a tuma touches the stem, does that transfer to the grape or not? So that depends. It all depends on if the stem is serving the fruit. If you are interested in it being there, if it does some kind of benefit for the food. So says the Gemara, when you harvest grapes, you have no interest in the stem. If anything, you don't want the stem, because the more stems there are, it's gonna actually take the wine will be. It'll suck out some of the wine. Right. So therefore, you definitely you don't want it. Therefore, if the tuma touches the stem, it does not transfer. It cannot become tameh, and also therefore it won't transfer to the grape. Okay. Rav Menashia bar Gada amar Rav Huna hakosel ischach en lo yado. So it's saying that if a person harvests wheat, grain, for schach, meaning he's to use as schach, also en lo yadot. It doesn't have any handles, which means the handles here I think are the straw, right? Yeah, the straw. Okay, which says the lower part of the stalk. Okay, here it's interesting. You're using it's the straw you're using as the schach, right? The grain, the kernel, is actually, we know, is puzzle. It's not, because it's food. We said food you cannot use. So here you're harvesting the grain, and you're going to use it for schach, and it's the straw that is your schach, and you're using it. You're putting it with the kernels. So says the Gemara that if a tuma touches the stalk, it won't transfer it to the grain. Okay, why? Because again, you're not interested in the stalks. You're not interested in the stalk being attached to the kernel, since you want it for schach. If anything, you don't want the kernel to be here. You don't want the kernel at all. It's puzzle. So therefore, since that's why, it's not considered a handle for a tuma. Okay? Now, man da amar kotzer, the Gemara says like this. Man da amar kotzer. We're going to see, by the way, if let's say you were not harvesting it for schach, if you're harvesting to eat, so then technically it would be a handle. Why? Because you are interested for the stalk potential to be attached to the grain, because it might help you to maybe carry it, etc. So man da amar kotzer.
You're saying like a handle, like to help you get the food?
Yeah, anything that's gonna help in any way, and it's gonna serve the food in any way. So again, like let's say a case when you harvest grain for eating, usually you would tie the grain together. So there you are interested in the stalk because it helps you to hold it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So man da amar kotzer, the one that holds when you harvest the grain for kol sheken botzer. The one that says, the second thing that says that when you harvest grain for schach, it's not a handle. So all the more so when we're harvesting grapes, it's not a handle. Why? Like we said, means he's not happy with the stem of the grape being there. Why? So that the stem it should not absorb any of the wine. Like we said, the stem is only going to interfere. Since you're harvesting it to make wine, the stem is going to absorb the wine. So for sure, anyone that's harvesting the grapes no one that's harvesting grapes is interested in the stems. Man da amar botzer, but the one that says that someone who harvests the grapes she'en lo yadot aval kotzer yesh lo yadot. Maybe the first opinion will argue the second and hold that no, someone who harvests grain for schach, he will hold that the stalk, the straw, is a handle. Why? He actually is interested in the straw being attached to the grain. Why? Even though the grain we said is pasul for schach, but the grain, the kernel, helps for the straw to be a little heavier, and it will help it not to scatter. Which some say, like Rashi, is that it won't scatter, meaning even before you want to use that schach, it'll help you to, I guess, it will help it not to get lost. And also, when it's on your sukkah, that's what Tosfos seems to say. On your sukkah, it'll help it not to fly too much and move about. So their point is, since you are interested, you have a benefit for the straw to be attached to the kernel, so it has a din of a handle, and therefore it can transfer the tuma. The handle can transfer tuma to the grain. Okay, so the Gemara says nema.
So
are we good? No. What?
So it can't be schach.
The kernel itself is not kosher schach, but the point here is that, and by the way, so if it's not kosher schach, so why? The only reason you're allowed to use it, meaning the only reason it's that it's okay, is because the straw, only if the straw is more than the kernels, so therefore we go by the majority, and the kernels are batel. It's batel, right? Right.
We say batel
What?
bro. We say batel.
Yeah, batel barov. It's batel. Yeah, in general. The Mishnah also talks to it later on, maybe. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So now the Gemara says, "Ne'ema de Rav Menashe bar Gada Tanaihi." So the second opinion about the schach, we're gonna say, is a machloket Tanaim. The Tanya. Sochet te'enim uvahen te'enim. Fig branch. Sochetim have fig branches which have figs on them. Parkilin uvahen anavim. Vines with grapes on them. Kashin uvahen shibolim, or straws with ears of grain on them. I'm using this is easy to translate with this. Machbedot uvahen temarim. It translates as brooms of palms, whatever, the palm branches, whatever. Uvahen temarim, which have dates on them. So these are all cases that you have sechach, which are all these are the branches. The branches are kosher schach, but it's attached to the fruits or whatever. And the fruits, so it says exactly what we just said. Kulan im pesolet meruba ala ochalin keshera. As long as the pesolet here means the non-food part is more than the food, so it's kosher schach. Like we just said, you go by the majority, right? Ve'im lav, but if not, pesula. Okay, so right, acharim omrim. Others say, others usually means Rabbi Meir. Achu kashin merubin ala yadot v'ala ochalim. Rabbi Meir says no. You need for the puzzle part to be more than not just the food, but also to the handle. What does that mean, the handle? What's the handle? So it's interesting. Imagine, again, let's say you have like a long, let's just use the date example. You have a long palm branch with dates, however it is, okay? So now, part of this palm branch is called a handle. See, it's like, even though it's one long branch, but there's a part that's called the handle. Whatever part is used and needed to help facilitate the food. So in other words, there's a Mishnah in Masechet Succah that tells you that there's a certain amount of each branch that's called the handle, because that's the part that people use, and so whatever part. So according to Acherim, that part is also puzzle to be used as schach, since it's used to help. Since it serves the food, so it has a din of the food, and therefore it's mekabel tum'ah. And what do we say? One of the rules is that in order to be kosher schach, it cannot be mekabel tum'ah. So if the handle can become tameh, memela it's not kosher as schach. So says Acherim that in order to use this long branch, you have to have enough kosher schach, which means you have to have enough of the branch that's not the handle to be more than the handle and the food together. Okay, so basically the concept is you need more kosher schach than non-kosher schach. The only question is what's called kosher and what's not kosher. The first opinion holds that it's only the actual fruit that's not kosher, the rest is kosher. And the second, the Acharim holds, no, not only is the food not kosher, even part of the branch is not kosher, whatever part is called the handle. Okay. So it says the Gemara, shall we not say that the Tanakama and Acherim are arguing on the following? The Mar Savar yesh lahen yadot, umar saven lahen yadot. What's the machloket Chachamim and Acherim? It must be, machloket is when a person harvests these branches for sechach, is the handle mekabel tumah. Remember, we just said before, according to the Rav Menashe Bar Gadia, we said it's not mekabel tumah, right? But we said according to the first opinion, if you remember, it is mekabel tumah. Why? Because we said that even though the fruit is not kosher schach, we said the fruit makes it heavier and it makes it easier not for it to scatter, right? So since you're interested in the fruits being there, so we're trying to say is that according to Acherim will hold that savara, and therefore Acherim hold that the handle is mekabel tumah, right? And therefore it's not kosher schach. So you're trying to say is that this machloket Tanaim, whether the handle is mekabel tumah, is the same machloket we just had about the Amoraim. Okay? So the Gemara says no. Well, the Gemara says this. L'Rabbi Abba Vada Tanai. It says according to the first Amora, yes, definitely machloket Tanaim, because since Rabbi Abba holds, like we said, that the straw is mekabel tumah, it does have a handle, he definitely is like who? He is like Acherim. He definitely cannot fit with the Tanakama. Okay? Fine. Rav Menashia bar Gada mi lema tanaihi. But maybe according to Rav Menashia bar Gada, the second Amora, maybe should we say it's machlok tanai? The Gemara says no. Amalach Rav Menashia the kula al masar re'akot l'schach en lo yad. Rav Menashia will tell you no. And you have to try to follow. This is going to get a little like you have to use your brain a little to follow the whole thing. Hopefully, we'll see if we can finish this point, but try to see if you can follow the logic here. Rav Menashia will tell you no. Everyone, both Tanakama and Acherim, will hold that when you harvest grain for schach, the handle is not mekabel tuma. Why? Because he says even though it does make it heavier, but that's not enough of a benefit. Oh, the reason says Rav Menashia that here Acherim hold that they are mekabel tuma is because the case is that when the guy that harvested it, he didn't harvest it to use as schach. He harvested it to eat. It means originally he harvested it for food. Everyone agrees when you harvest it for food, the handle is mekabel tuma because we said that everyone holds that you're interested in the handle because it helps you to tie it together, right? But what happened is that after he harvested for food, he changed his mind and he decided to use it for schach. The question is when you change your mind, does that now take away the ability for the straw to mekabel tuma? So the Gemara says, okay. So and we're saying right now that's the machloket Tanakama and Acherim. That is the thought of using a schach enough. So ikos and Gemara says, wait a second. No, my time with Rabbanan, if you originally harvested for food, how could anyone, even Chachamim, shouldn't say that? Meaning, even Chachamim should agree that it's still mekabel tuma. Why? V'chitema kasevi Rabbanan. If you're going to tell me that Chachamim hold kivan de nimlach an lesikuch, that the second you decide to use it for schach, batle machshavto, that takes away your original thought to use it for food. Umi batle machshavachi, can you negate a original machshava with that? We cannot. V'hatanan. But we learned the Mishnah. Kol hakelim, next Amud, any vessel. Okay, this is Masechet Kelim. Any vessel, yordin lidei tuma b'machshava. So we said that we know that a utensil, a kli, is able to mekabel tuma. But the rule is it can only mekabel tuma when it's finished. So let's say you're making a chair. Until you finish making the chair cannot mekabel tuma. Okay, so you're in the middle of making the chair, you're putting the pieces, it cannot become tum. That when we say it cannot become tum, it means even if it touches like a dead body, whatever, it's still not tummy. Only when it's called finished, when it's finished, then it can become tum. So says the Mishnah, well, what's called finished? Let's say you're making something. The example to give, let's say you're making a leather shoe, okay, whatever. So you're in the middle of fixing the leather. Now, sometimes you can use the leather for a tablecloth, and let's say that needs less preparation. So you're in the middle of making this leather. So says the Mishnah, even if you were originally planning to make it into a shoe, so you're not done yet as far as making the shoe, but the second you decide, let's say you change your mind in the middle, and you're like, you know what? Nah, I'm going to use this for a tablecloth. In other words, and now it's ready. So it says the second you think to use it for a tablecloth, the second you decide that it's finished, it's now mekabel tuma. Your machshava is able to make it mekabel tuma. That's what it says. Yordin letum b'machshava. Your thought can already make it become tameh. But if after you decide to use it for a tablecloth, let's say you're like, nah, I changed back my mind, I want to use it for a shoe. Question is that enough to take away the tuma, right? So it says no. Once it's able to become tameh, meaning once you decided that it's finished, the only way to now make it unfinished is that you have to actually start working on it. You have to do some action in order to take away its ability to become tameh. So that's you say ve'en olim tumatan ela b'shinui maaseh. You can only take away its ability only if you do something. So, right? So it says maaseh motzi miyad maaseh b'yad machshava. A later action will help take away the tuma, even if it originally became tameh or finished through either a machshava or a maseh. Machshava ena motzia lo miyad maseh lo machshava. But the second it becomes finished, the second it can become tameh, your machshava, a later machshava, is not able to take that away. Okay, fine. So the Gemara says, yeah.
This Mishnah is can validate the Achronim arguing with the Tanaim. Or the Amoraim arguing with the Tanaim.
1 second. This is the Mishnah. So 1 second. Let's just finish. 1 second. So the question is, we just said, you have to follow now, that the case of the earlier Braita was that the reason why the Tanakama holds that these handles can become tameh is because you originally harvested it for food. Okay, so you harvested it, and therefore your machshava makes the handle to become tameh, right? Now we said that the reason why in this Braita these handles are not tameh is because you decided to use it for schach. The Gemara says, wait a second, but we just said in this Mishnah that your machshava is not enough to take away tuma. So how can you tell me that according to Tanakama, but just by thinking to use it for schach, it's going to take the tuma away from the handles? That seems to contradict the Mishnah. You understand? That's what we're asking. L'chora, it's a contradiction. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Again, you have to follow. And I'll see if we can finish this. He says, no. Maybe when is machshava not enough to take away from tuma? Only by a vessel. A vessel is something chashuv. So in order to take away the tuma of a vessel, you have to do an action. But a handle, which is not so chashuv, it's only something to help you for the food. Maybe you're going to say that a handle is enough with machshava to take away the tuma. But we say no. Okay, this I think is going to get a little complicated. I don't think we're going to be able to finish this. We're going to now prove from a Mishnah that even by handles, your machshava is not going to be enough to take away the tuma, as we're going to see from a Mishnah. I think I'll have to stop here because it's going to get a little complicated. So basically, hopefully we'll continue tomorrow, we'll review, but the question now is machshava enough to take away tuma from a handle? Amen.